Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Briceni in Moldova. At least that's how I think you pronounce it. Alessia, our resident Moldovan here, will correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, so look for their comment down below if I mispronounce this horribly. But yeah, we're back in Moldova. We've been in Moldova a bunch recently, I feel like. But as you can see, we're at like the tippy tip of the north of Moldova here. It's a very small part of a very small country, so there's not a lot of geography and history to talk about. In terms of geography, it's mostly just farmland. There are some karst caves as well, and many rivers flowing throughout. And there's really only two towns. So you have, of course, the capital, Briceni, and what's it called again? It's like Lipchani, I think. Because that's pretty much it. And you can see here that it does share a border with Ukraine up here, and a little border here with Romania. Up here in the very tippy tip of Moldova. Now the history here is going to be pretty short, since again it's just a small little corner of a small little country. But this area has been part of Moldova since the 1350s. Isn't that interesting? Very long time. It would become part of the Ottoman Empire by 1538. It was a vassal state. And in 1812 it would be part of Russia. The Ottomans would lose the Russo-Turkish War at the start of the 1800s, and Russia got Moldova and started Russification of the population here, making them more Russian. But there was already a population here that had their very own distinct culture and language and everything, and that was the Jewish population. The Yiddish-speaking population here was very thriving. It was a massive community at its peak in like the mid to the end of the 1800s. There were over 10,000 Jewish people living in this corner of Moldova. Keep that in mind. By 1918, the country became independent. I forgot to tell you about Bessarabia. You can see right here. It says Bessarabia. So this was kind of an old-timey term for pretty much what's mostly Moldova, but it goes into this area down here of Ukraine as well. Pretty much just this area. I suppose part of Romania too in a way, but Moldavia. Anyway, we're not getting into it, but when it was part of Russia, this area is known as Bessarabia. So Bessarabia became independent in 1918 after World War I. But they called themselves the Moldovan Democratic Republic. Of course, the Russians, I'm sure, were always quite bitter that they lost a lot of land after that very large conflict and upheaval of their country. So in 1940, due to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the Russians invaded. The Soviets invaded, I should say. I feel like the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact comes up 5,000 times on my channel. Pretty much any time we talk about Eastern European history, it pops up. It was pretty much a secret agreement between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. They were like, hey, let's say hypothetically we fought a huge war, and let's just hypothetically draw lines on the map to show what we would conquer. So if anything happened, that's what we would conquer, so we wouldn't have a conflict. So once World War II sparked, once Hitler invaded Poland, that agreement came into play, and Russia went and invaded all of the areas that they said that they would invade if there was a conflict. But then, of course, there was a huge conflict. It was World War II. So Russia invaded here in 1940. They created the Moldovan SSR, the Moldovan Soviet socialist republic. Now, Romania, the neighbor here, right next door, at the time was very sympathetic with Nazi Germany. They were buddies. So, a joint German-Romanian force wound up hopping over the border and taking over between 1941 and 1944. And the Jewish population therefore suffered immensely. Just like we mentioned in the last video, in Belarus, which also had their Jewish population pretty much depleted during World War II, some very horrific atrocities occurred in this area. And we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details because it makes me very sad to read about it. The population, like I said, it was well over 10,000 Jewish people. By the end of World War II, it was about 50. So we're not going to get into what happened to all of those people. Just know that their lives were lost in a very horrifying, unforgiving way. And it makes my heart heavy to think about it. And I don't want to make your guys' hearts heavy thinking about the terrifying, horrible details that occurred during these events. So we're not going to get into it so that you can relax and just know that this history occurred here. They went around and burned all the synagogues down. I was on Google Earth trying to find any kind of remnant of Jewish history, and I found a Jewish graveyard, but that's about it because the rest was destroyed during World War II. Then, of course, by 1944, the Soviets had reinvaded and reestablished their territory here, which would end by 1991. 1990, maybe, I'm not positive. There is a bit of interesting modern history that occurred here. Interesting in that it's just a weird little fact, I suppose. So, this area of Moldova borders Ukraine. I mean, lots of Moldova borders Ukraine, but this area borders Ukraine. And there is an ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, especially at the time of me filming this. It's June 2025. It's still ongoing. In December 2022 and in February 2023, some Russian bombs accidentally landed near Briceni, blowing up some farmland and things like that. And big yikes. Obviously Moldova wasn't like, we're going to declare war, because it was obviously an accident. But the fact that it happened twice, come on now. Don't get... There's already too many innocents involved. We don't need any more, right? Just one of the consequences of living so close to a conflict zone, I suppose. And hopefully it won't happen again, because Moldova has nothing to do with that conflict, at least directly. But that is the history of this little tiny district of Moldova. I say that, but we've talked about smaller ones, I feel like. But anyway, why don't we hop over to Google Earth and I'll show you a couple of the slideshows that I found here in Briceni. Here we are in the Briceni district. Let's start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are. Maybe you've never heard of Moldova. It's one of those lesser known European countries, so I'll show you where it is. Here is Moldova. Capital Chisinau, wedged here between Romania and Ukraine. Over here in Eastern Europe. It's a really obscure country. A really strange history, especially if you know about Transnistria. But that's a story for another day. Let's talk about Briceni. Let's start in the actual town. Briceni. There's some neat little interesting sights around here. There's some beautiful churches. We have some Soviet style buildings, of course. Very blocky and brutalist. We've got it looks like maybe Lenin. I'm not sure. It's kind of too far away. Wouldn't be surprised if it was. Yep, that statue's seen better days, hasn't it? But this is Briceni, the biggest town in this district. I think that is him. Don't quote me on that, though. There's a beautiful old monastery over here. Okay. Really pretty building. In this lovely forest area. Look at this. Definitely like an Eastern Orthodox monastery. You can see the icons here. All gold and beautiful. If you hear that tapping over there, that's my brother-in-law playing video games. He's trying to stay very quiet for us, so I appreciate that. But he's clearly playing something very passionately right now. And look at these beautiful paintings here. All the icons. Wow. Really pretty building. Let me see. Here it is. The Jewish cemetery. Pretty much like the only remnant of the Jewish culture left here. Oh, he lost. You can see the old headstones here, some in Hebrew, some in, I think, Moldovan, right, in Cyrillic script. That's some in Hebrew. Probably Yiddish. There's a little girl. Poor thing. But yeah, there's something kind of, I mean, cemeteries, graveyards always kind of have that eerie quality to them, but very old Jewish ones, mostly because they tend to be neglected for one reason or another. Not this one. This one is caged up. You can't get near this person's grave marker there. A lot of them tend to be neglected for one reason or another, and they're all overgrown and the stones are crooked and things like that. They're like kind of the more eerie, in a kind of like sacred way kind of cemeteries. The other town over here is Lipchani. Let's see what we can find here. Then we'll just look at the beautiful landscapes. I found some really pretty hiking trails in this district. We'll see if I can find them again. Little houses. Apartments, playground. Yep, nothing too like extravagant, right? It's a little tiny town in a little tiny district in a little tiny country. Oh no, Lenin. He's dirty. Poor guy. One time I feel bad. But yeah, let's look at, what's this? Did we see this? What in the world? Definitely looks like another little, I want to say chapel. Do they have chapels in Eastern Orthodox? It's graves here as well. Maybe this is another cemetery. They got me. But here are these really pretty little areas here where you can really see the landscape. It's just beautiful rolling farmland. Big old sky. All these beautiful colors. Oh my goodness, that's lovely. Gosh, you can see like 50 colors right here. It is stunning. I feel like this is one of those places that the people who live here are just like, this place is humdrum, boring, nothing happens here. Except when we're accidentally bombed by Russia. But I think it's really pretty. Let's look at the stone road. Which I remember being like, the stone road, what's that? And it's like, well, I don't know what I was expecting. It's literally a stone road. Expectations were met. But yeah, there's something really pretty about simple, little, quiet places like this. I love the patchwork quilts of farmland. Let's look like, where's a good spot? Like down here. All the little squares of various colors and sizes all mushed together. I don't think we are. Let me pull the borders back up. But you see what I mean, right? Yeah, we definitely wandered too far away. There's a little rock quarry over here. I think there was some pretty, yeah, there were some nice little slideshows over here by this big rock quarry, which is apparently very hard to say. Big little rocky hill there by this little lake. Probably a man-made lake. Look at all this farmland. It's so lovely, I think. Like, yes, it's simple. Yes, it's kind of like not very exciting, you know, but I think it's very beautiful. I think everywhere on this planet is beautiful. If you haven't guessed, if you've watched a lot of my videos, if you haven't figured that out, I think the entire planet is just a beautiful, beautiful place. We're so lucky to be alive on this rock. How fortunate are we to be in the most beautiful planet that could ever exist anywhere in the entire universe. Nowhere can be as beautiful as Earth. But I'm going on a tangent. Here's a cool museum. This guy, I think is, as you'd see, Gregory Viru, I hope. Alessia will correct that. He was a poet / writer. And this was his house. He actually passed away quite recently in the 2000s. Like the early noughts. So here's a little museum where you can see where he lived and probably where he wrote a lot of his works. This little village here. Let's look at this. Looks like another hiking trail. Oh, how cool. We can see some of the Rockies like landscapes here. Because like I said, lots of karst caves in this area. Karst, as I've said a couple times on this channel, we talk about Eastern European caves. Karst is a very soft rock, meaning that when it's washed over with water a lot, it'll erode the rock and make it very kind of curved and rounded, you know. Give it kind of a blobby shape, and that really makes it easy for caves to form. So most caves here in Eastern Europe are made of karst rock. Look how pretty. Oh, that's so sweet. Little plant life around here. I think this looks like another hiking trail. More cool rocky areas. This place is lovely. Oh, that's so pretty. This place is nice. I would love to go hiking here. It would be an honor. But yeah, there are many other little slideshows like this around here. I encourage you to see if you can find any. Let me know if you find any cool ones down in the comments for us to check out. This is pretty much what the rest of the district looks like. Let's find one more. How about this one? It has no pictures. This one has no pictures. And none of these have pictures. How unfortunate. It's like the first time I've come across a place here that didn't have any pictures. Okay, let's see this. A little green space. But anyway, I'll stop it here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing, and definitely if you enjoyed this, you're going to want to subscribe because tomorrow we're going to Wales and we're going to see some beaches actually. some interesting sights around the shoreline, and of course it's Wales, so we're going to see a bunch of old castles. I think, wasn't it Wales has the most castles per like square something or other, something like that. So you're not going to want to miss that. Be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up before you fall asleep. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a good